On today's podcast, your hosts TC and Chris Nicole discuss their ideology concerning a coach's role in athlete education. Hey everybody, so we are back with another episode. Again, another episode about athletes, all about the athletes. That's definitely where our heart and soul is. Been getting a lot of people appreciating learning about us through the podcast. So I feel like we're not ones to just kind of give our personal life updates, but I think we should talk about some of the things that we've been doing as of late. Just like a quick life update, and then we'll get right into the content. So we do have a couple of events on the horizon that we're organizing. When I say we, mostly TC. And we've had some different changes to our daily routine. So which one do you want to talk about first?
I guess I'll talk about the events and then you can talk about the routine changes.
Okay, sounds good.
So first up, we got 100% Raw World Championships. We've got a lot of exciting developments this year. We're gonna have a big LED backdrop. Ray Williams, who is a 7-time IPF super heavyweight world champion, he's gonna be at the Pro Strict Curl on Saturday for a meet and greet. As well as Lee Haney, that's 8-time Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
Lee Haney, he's going to be there. He's going to be our keynote speaker that night. He's going to be there for the meet and greet as well.
It's a 4-day event, so there's a lot of organizing.
Yeah. So it should be a lot of fun. This is my second year helping with this event, and we've made some pretty monumental, beneficial changes, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it comes together.
Yeah.
There's going to be growing pains with anything.
Right.
But I really think it's going to be worth it. And I think that at least 98% of the lifters are going to believe it's worth it as well. So
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see the changes. I was there for a little bit last year, but I was also flying to Des Moines. I think that's where I was. I don't even know. A Midwest somewhere.
Yeah, you flew into, I think, Kansas City and then drove to Des Moines.
Yes, that's right. Yes. So I was traveling during that. For a team show, coaching some athletes. And this year, simultaneously the same weekend is the NPC Ben Weider National Championship. So I will be coaching there as well. So that's also in Virginia. So halfway through the World Championship that TC will be running, I'll be up there coaching and then running back, and we'll be exhausted by the end of the weekend, but it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So
it'll be great.
And then we have a couple other events. We'll be flying out to California.
Yeah, so beginning in December, we have a strict curl competition. Our state chair out there, John Wong, he's going to fly both of us out there to help. It's to be seen yet if Sam's going to come down and help us out with that.
Sam, we're plugging you right now.
Yep. But yes, we got that. And then the following month in January, I actually met with the Miami International Fitness Expo promoter yesterday, and he's going to be doing a much smaller event in January that he invited us to. And I think what we're going to probably end up doing is just bring a strict curl platform out there and do like a strict curl exhibition.
In Miami,
Yeah, try to get the word out. Continue to try to boost the sport. Might even bring a deadlift bar and do some hip thrusts. So the reason being for those two exercises is because at the Miami International Fitness Expo, which will be June 1st, 2024, 100% Raw will be there, and we're going to be having a strict curl competition, full power lifting competition, and 2 flights of hip thrust. So this will be the first time that the hip thrust lift has been sanctioned within 100% Raw powerlifting, and pretty excited about it. So,
it's gonna be a lot of fun. I competed at that Miami show this year. It was our first time there, and it was a blast. I competed with Coach Paul and Nicole and Marina, and then TC went around and made a bunch of friends while I was competing. But we made a lot of good connections, and that's kind of what helped open up this opportunity to be plugged in. I feel like more and more we're in Florida, but Florida's been very good to us. So
yeah, no going back now.
Our calendar is filling up I feel like all the time. But
February, we've got NC State Championships with Raw, and we got Battle of the Border March, and then we've got American Challenge kicking off in May, and then right into June, and then we've got nationals, with bodybuilding, North Americans and stuff,
And there's holidays in there too.
and then
Traveling.
2024 is over already.
Now we are in 2025.
So welcome. No,
But yeah, it's been good. So, or just keep an eye out or ear out if there's things that or events that you are interested in. Definitely, contact TC and or me, probably TC.
yeah, definitely. Like if you're 100% Raw is a tested powerlifting federation, but if you're interested in competing in the hip thrust, just like shoot me a message. I'm really looking to honestly, if I get enough hip thrust registrations, I'm probably going to take the full power out. Like anyone, we're going to be right next to Powerlifting America. They're going to be doing squat, bench, deadlift. Great. That's perfectly fine. I'll do the strict curl, and I would love to have like 4 or 5 flights of hip thrust.
Yeah, that would be sweet.
Yeah. So tell your friends that, like I said, like Chris said, reach out to me, and we'll get you registered. It should be a really good time. They are. They had 50,000 square foot last year. They're increasing by 25,000 square feet. So they're going to be up to 75,000 square feet. They usually have at least 5,000 people going through there. They have like I want to say he said 500 vendor tables, but that sounds like a lot for the space that I'm thinking of last year. But it's a full expo. Like it's a great event.
Yeah, Adrian came and her and I walked around and yeah, you walked around too.
I bought you a bunch of cookies.
Yeah, yeah. Well, cookies. There was like massage people there, which we made connections with as well.
Yeah.
They've been great.
Relax
So
and get results. Yep.
yeah. So yeah, it was fun. And Adrian and I got free like shorts and tops from TLF, I think it is, which is great quality stuff. They were like, "What size are you?" And we were both like ready to like.
We'll talk about that later. But you also have had like cortisol issues in the past where you didn't get that cortisol spike to help you wake up in the morning. So that's kind of
Right.
what we were aiming for with that, with waking up and getting right to the gym, because obviously working out will give you that cortisol spike, and then you can kind of ride that for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to do walks in the morning outside in sunlight, which I think did help, but
It was gradual, like since we've been down here, you've been progressively doing more and more towards like building your morning routine.
and I think the accountability has really helped me.
Sure.
Because going for a walk, I would just go whenever I felt like it. I would take like 2 hours to get ready to then go for a walk and like sit and read or whatever. Like just wait for myself to wake up. And I feel like because I have someone to interact with, very, very little bit of interaction because I don't like to talk in the morning either. But it's like I have a partner to practice this new habit with. And I think that has helped a lot. So
Yeah, that's great.
we'll see.
So we just want to encourage you guys to step outside of your comfort zone, and just because
Try things.
exactly, and even if it hasn't worked in the past, like you're a different athlete from one prep to another, from one training cycle to another. Like,
Yes.
just remember that. So,
Yeah.
and right now, Chris is in her building season. I
Mm-hmm.
almost said off season. There is no off season. So Chris is in her growing season, so she has a little more calories. So her glycogen stores are going to be a little more full. So like that training fasted thing, she's had blood sugar issues in the past, right? So
Correct. Yep.
we just wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to be an issue. And so far, it's worked pretty well.
Yeah.
So
It's been great.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm doing it, guys. And all my people that wake up at like 4 a.m. and start sprinting on the treadmill, I'm saluting you. My early is 6 a.m. So that I'm doing it.
Yeah, it's still good.
Yeah. But okay, so I think let's kind of like dive into what our topic is today about why we feel it's important to educate athletes. I think we're very big on that being a component of people's prep and part of the conversation when we're, working towards a specific goal. And to even educate anyone else, we have to be educated ourselves. So, do you want to share about some of the ways that you continue to gain knowledge and, evolve as a coach so that you can help your athletes?
Sure. So obviously there are a ton of different avenues of self-education, right? I mean, you can go to school. That's not self-education, really. That's,
Sure.
being
Yeah.
educated. But I think in this industry, I think being educated is going to be a little less useful than educating yourself. And let me explain that. Because I'm not saying that school is useless. I'm not saying that teachers can't teach you anything. But what I am saying is, um, I think very little research goes into the athlete population.
Correct. Yeah.
So a lot of like commonly accepted quote unquote rules don't necessarily apply to certain athlete populations.
Sure.
Um,
They're a majority obese population.
yeah, obese, untrained individuals.
Correct. Yeah.
So I think right out the gate, that's very important to remember. Whether you're being educated or whether you're reading papers, whether you're reading studies, whether you're, talking with other people, like I think that's very important to remember that we are not the rule, we're the exception.
Mm-hmm.
And you can extrapolate some pieces of information from these studies, but uh, it's just important to keep in mind that we live life differently. So to that end, I think it's important to learn from other people in the industry
I would agree.
that have found a lane that they're really good at,
Mm-hmm.
and they have just completely explored that rabbit hole.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And then they put the spark notes up at the top of the hole,
Mm-hmm.
and you learn from them and you let them have their lane. Like,
Yes.
and that's one thing that I feel like some people have a problem doing, and I don't know if it's insecurity, I don't know if it's arrogance and ego. I'm not necessarily sure. I'm sure it varies from person to person, but Chris and I are very comfortable in talking about what we know and what we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't know something, we definitely want to go figure it out for you and find
Yeah.
out. So we're not afraid to say, I don't know. We're
Mm-hmm.
not just going to give you some BS answer.
Yeah.
And we're also not going to act like experts in every single field. So, like recently, I've been doing a ton of research on mobility and range of motion and sculpting a physique using mobility work. I will never call myself a mobility guru.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm a power builder, and that's even taking two different things there.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the most that I'll ever take.
Yeah.
But I love powerlifting and I love bodybuilding. And I believe that mobility is integral for both sports, for the longevity of an athlete in both sports. So I find different, let's just say, Instagram accounts
Mm-hmm.
manipulations have to be made in order to help them get to where they need to get to.
Right.
So yeah, so those are some avenues. You're reading, it's right behind you, the Glute Lab book by Brett Contreras. It's basically a big textbook all about glute training.
I read it over and over again.
And
But it's very interesting, and I do like because I agree with a lot of his philosophy and like how he approaches
well, and he has results.
glute training. Well, that's another big plus. Yeah.
Yeah. If he didn't have like hundreds of girls that he's helped grow their glutes to massive proportions, then this book would be a lot less valuable. But he's
Yeah.
a PhD who's devoted his life to glute training. So guess what? That's who we're going to look to when
He's
we're
gonna
thinking about
know.
glute training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm also reading a book on cortisol and stress, which I feel like everyone and their mother is dealing with, myself included. So that's been very eye-opening to kind of just have a different perspective. And it does include a lot of studies that I can go and refer to. So it has like a scientific, I don't know.
What's that called? Who wrote it?
Let me see.
I believe it's it's the cortisol connection.
Yeah, it's called The Cortisol Connection. Sean Talbot.
Sure, just for anyone who's interested. We can always put that in the show notes too.
Yeah. And I found out about this book because I was listening to other professionals in the sport. So podcasts are another way to kind of educate yourself and learn.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I kept hearing people refer to this book, and I'm like, well, I have, we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, some issues with cortisol. I should probably do my own, because also doing your own research helps you communicate with your athlete team. I know better questions to go ask my physician because I'm educating myself on what's going on with my body, what my symptoms are, what my lab results are reading, and I can ask more specific things. And I found that they actually very much appreciate that because they're doing less of the like basic education, and people who like their job and they like what they do, they like to talk about it and they like to expand on their like share their knowledge with somebody who's interested in hearing it. So yeah, those mostly for me. Literature has been helpful. Also, it's just an activity that I can do that's quiet and relaxing, and then also, occasionally we'll pop in a podcast, especially if we're going on like a long drive. That's very helpful. I have my athletes share with me stuff that they're learning on occasion, especially if they want my opinion on it or they want to experiment with something that they've heard. I'm completely open to that. I am not a like,
Well, we encourage it because like more heads researching the same topic gets you more results.
and if I'm completely like, I have no knowledge on the topic, then it's something that we like discover together. And that's fun. I feel like learning as you go, like, especially if you enjoy your profession, is something this particular person? And I didn't know how to answer that because I'll learn the content, I'll do great on tests, but the applicable part was where I struggled because I didn't exercise that muscle of like, okay, here's the scenario. How would I help them? So then I enrolled in NPTI.
That's it. Yeah. I always forget the letters.
And I spent 6 months. I saved up all my money, spent 6 months going through their education program where they talked about nutrition, they talked about program design, and they had a component on anatomy, which I thought was extremely helpful. If you are training someone, you should know your anatomy. You should know where the muscle insertion and origin is, what like functions it has, the opposing muscle group. That totally like opened up my mind to designing programming that made way more sense. And then the school also had a practical part where half of it was in the classroom and then half of it you went to the gym and you had to cue the exercise. You had to perform it and cue it and practice it. So that helped a lot too. So that's where my training has come from.
Sure. Yeah. So that's a lifelong certification.
Correct.
So you don't need to do continuing education once you go through that course. But obviously we still do. So yeah, certifications, that's a great way. Most of them are going to give you like very basic information. Just like you said, it's not necessarily going to give you a ton of like critical thinking and application
Right.
aspects. But if you're a fitness professional, you should be immersed in the culture anyway. And you should be taking what you're learning and trying to apply it to your own training first before you just arbitrarily try to apply these training theories to your athletes.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Especially if you're an online coach.
Yes.
And you just, oh, well, it should be working. It should, all you need to do is this. And look, like theory is completely different than reality. It gives you a starting point, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
Especially when you're dealing with people, because every body is different.
Yeah.
So that's definitely really important to keep in mind.
And I think that goes into our next point of like allowing athletes to have a voice when they're communicating with us. And I think that should be, there's other coaches that allow that as well. They're just not.
Growth in education. Obviously, as your coaches, we are there to lead your exploration of your own body and your own fitness journey. But I definitely believe that there is an aspect to successful athletes that they're always curious about the why behind what they're doing. It's very easy to just be a robot and go through the programming, and then if it doesn't work, you just, well, that coach sucks. Well,
Right.
if you didn't give them any feedback, then they didn't have anything to go off of, and all they're going off of is like general expertise from other athletes.
Right.
So if you're not checking in with your coach, if you're not asking questions, if you're not giving feedback on your training program, your nutrition program, your stress level throughout the week, your weekly schedule, if you're not communicating with your coach, you're not doing your job as an athlete. And now if your coach isn't asking these questions, then we could say that they're not doing their job either, right? It's a two-way street. But I've just found that the most successful athletes are very invested in their prep and in their own growth as a intelligent athlete, right? Not
Sure.
just a physical athlete. Um, so yeah, but so what I do is I ask for a ton of different like assessment videos, and
Yeah.
we try to pinpoint various weaknesses and weak points and movement compensations so that we can bring their attention to it for their training, which again keeps the athlete thinking and focused on their own body as like in a unique anatomical figure,
Sure.
right? So because now we know that we have this little issue and we can't just do square lat pull downs. We have to change our torso positioning to make sure that we're accounting for this shoulder girdle shift. And now we have a lat weakness on one side and we have to target that to build it back up, and then we can go back towards the bilateral focus. But yeah, it can be hard, right? It can be very difficult, and it can also be I don't want to say like demoralizing. That's not the I don't think the word but demotivating
Sure.
when you feel like you're constantly having to fix these issues and you're never doing anything right. But I think what's important to remember is that's not the case. Just because it can be done better doesn't mean you're not doing it right. Doesn't mean you're not doing it correctly. It just means maybe we can make this exercise a little more efficient for you. Um, and that's my job as a coach, right? Towards where I was wanting to go.
I also think like going through experiences yourself as an athlete helps in like we've said, relatability for
Mm-hmm.
an athlete, but also helps educate them uh, a little bit differently than if I'm reading a textbook about a back injury. And now here is a protocol to follow. It's more like, I know what this feels like.
Yeah.
This is what's, and then you can give them specific things that they're like, yes, you know exactly what I'm experiencing. Like there is that component that I think and connection that helps with just being able to relay information
Mm-hmm.
to someone. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a positive way to kind of look at a bad
Well, you
situation.
have to. You have to look at it positively, right? Because any situation is just that. It's just a situation. And if you start looking at it as a negative situation, then your own mentality has already beat you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like I said, this injury, all that it's doing is pointing out an issue in my own kinesiology. And if I want to achieve the powerlifting goals that I've set forth for myself, I know that I have to be perfect. And if I'm not perfect yet, I'm going to keep hurting myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I would much rather slightly tweak my back with 450 pounds on my back than wait until I'm going for an 800-pound PR and completely destroy a disc,
Sure.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? And that is a hard mentality to adopt. It is. When you're injured and you just want to go in there, balls to the wall, and just beat the crap out of yourself
Mm-hmm.
training, it's hard. But a lot of the times it's very worth it. If you hurt yourself, you have a weak link in your kinetic chain that
Mm-hmm.
needs to be addressed. And that's all that injury is telling you. We had an athlete a few weeks ago hurt her back. She was an eccentric on her last rep of deadlifts.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've been through it, I said, I imagine where you're feeling the pain is right here. And she emailed me back, yeah, that's exactly it.
Mm-hmm.
I said, don't worry. It's just a muscle strain. This is what we're going to do to fix it. And you're going to come out stronger than you were before.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, man, she's been emailing us. Oh my gosh, like my training's been going so great. I feel great. Yeah, I still feel like a little band around that, that area of my torso, but all this core work and the lumbar love days and like it's all coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And my training has felt great recently.
So let's talk about the training because I feel like that's one thing that I really enjoy that you do is you have specific focal points for the workout.
Mm-hmm.
There's like, I open up the app and there's a description of why this workout was created and what its purpose is. And then with each individual exercise, you've done a good job of not just explaining the cues, but where you should be feeling things, what your body position, like there's just a lot of detail. And so, yeah, why don't you kind of talk on how your training is set up to help educate athletes in the gym?
Sure. So, kind of what we talked about last podcast was training intensity versus intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
And what I aim to do with my programming is to show the athletes the amount of thought that should be going into their training. We're not just going into the gym and going through the motions. We're training. We're not just working out. So the difference between working out and training is working out is for general fitness. It's for the average individual. They go to the gym to get movement in because now in the 21st century, we have these sedentary lifestyles and we need to go to the gym to get any kind of physical activity.
Sure.
Training is focused, consistent work towards a specific goal. And if you're an athlete, if you're a bodybuilder, if you're a powerlifter, if you're a CrossFitter, it doesn't matter. You're training because you're aiming to do better at your next competition. So every time you go into the gym, your focal point should be on what do I need to do to get better for my next competition? What are my weak links that I need to work on and focus on? What are the positioning cues that I need to reestablish? And bringing that kind of intentionality to the workout, yeah, it's tough. But you know what? That's why not everyone is successful in sports.
Mm-hmm.
Working out is easy. Everyone, okay, not everyone, if you go to the gym, you like to work out, right? Like that's the easy part of being an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Training and being intentional with your movements and your energy expenditure, that is the hard part. So the cues that I put in there, I understand that sometimes they can be a little overwhelming. because if you go from thinking about nothing in your training to trying to think about literally every part of your kinetic chain, it's difficult.
Yes.
It's hard.
Uh-huh.
But what I've realized is if you don't start from the ground up, let's just say you're doing chest flies, and you don't initiate your posture with your feet rooting into the ground, and then your legs corkscrewing into your feet so that you activate your glutes, and then your glutes staying activated so that you can pull your erectors away from your pelvis without your pelvis positioning changing, and then activate your core so now your spine is completely rigid. It's you're probably going to be using more rotator cuff than
Yeah.
pec muscle. And you might, what I've noticed is I shift to one side and I might get my left pec, but because the right side of my back is a little more locked up, I'm going to be hitting my shoulder and my rotator cuff instead of my pec.
Okay.
So yes, it's tedious to think about your entire body when you're doing these things, but your kinetic chain was designed to work a specific way, and it works interdependently with different parts of your body. And what I've been realizing is, so I've been dealing with some elbow pain. My elbow pain is coming because my right shoulder is shifted forward slightly. And that puts it in a different position so that when I'm doing pressing motions or even bicep curls, I'm putting more strain on that this little muscle in here, the tennis elbow. It's putting more strain on that than there should be. And when I reposition that shoulder, the pain is gone immediately. And it's just crazy because you wouldn't think your scapula position would have anything to do with elbow pain. And then I started realizing that my forearm activation was a little different. So I started messing around with forearm mobilization and like rotation, like wrist range of motion and mobility, and realizing that I have a lot more wrist mobility issues now on my right side as well. So again, your body is an interdependent unit. And if you don't take everything into account, look, you don't have to start right away with thinking of your entire body. Pick a cue, master it, and move on. The issue with that is like, if you're doing reverse pec deck flies and you're arching the shit out of your low back, it's going to be a lot harder to then change that bracing positional pattern in the future once you've established it. So that's why I try to give everyone all the cues immediately. And then whatever you pick up on, great. We'll work on the rest later.
We also give accessory exercises outside of those, I'm going to say like glamour lifts that are just like straight hypertrophy centered. Like there are other exercises in there to help establish. I mean, I just had athlete message me today that the style of unilateral hip thrusts that you had prescribed helped her make a better connection between her pelvis and her core, and her hip thrusts were so much better after that, and she's got sore glutes walking on the treadmill. But I also similarly, I think people get locked into this exercise isn't good for me because, like, I can use me as an example. Hip thrusts, I feel too much of my hamstring. So I'm just building giant hamstrings. I feel some glute, but there's probably a glute exercise that's better at isolating my glutes. In fact, I actually have, problems with engaging my core, and learning different things through other exercises that were prescribed helped me be able to isolate and now hip thrust is like a killer workout for my glutes. But I had to be willing to be educated on some of those things and read the description, and it takes a lot of work. Not everyone has, and I don't think that maybe it is for everybody.
Yeah, you don't have to.
It's a lot of like be intentionality, like we always say. And you can get results from just doing like
100%.
Exercises you can get from like a muscle and fitness magazine and something. Like you can. There's different ways to do things, but like where this topic of this podcast is about educating clients and why that's important, because I do like that people can walk away if they ever like, we did have an athlete who learned a ton. She didn't have the finances to continue, but she was ignited with this excitement to explore fitness in a different way. And she stayed in contact with us, and
Yeah, she listens to our podcast, posts
she's
about it all the time, and
advancing, and we love that. That to us, that's a win, because the other thing about educating athletes is they don't become dependent
yes,
on their coach. I think there is a time where you do need to just listen to what your coach is telling you, because you're in a deep deficit and they're the guiding light when you're feeling just like crap. But I do think that, like, there are seasons where, you know, there is that communication to continue to, like you said, help guide them in exploration. And I never want people to feel like they don't know how to operate without me. I want them to help. I want them to be able to
yeah.
understand.
Well, that's what we tell people. Like, especially when I was training people in person, I said my goal is to make it so that you don't have to have me as your trainer for the rest of your life. And yeah, hey, if you want to stay and have me train you, and great,
That's
I
not a
will do it.
lucrative move, by the way.
Yeah.
That's not lucrative, but it's, I think, the most beneficial to the individual.
My goal is to educate you guys so that you learn the reasoning behind these things. So like what Chris was talking about earlier with the exercise selection is there's always going to be a reason for every exercise that's in your program from me. And it's not always just going to be hypertrophy. I know you need bigger glutes,
Ugh,
but
yeah.
doing body weight unilateral glute bridges is probably not going to be your hypertrophy exercise for the day. But having those in after some core work is going to put your body in a very, very good position to friggin' maximize on that 100 rep challenge for the hip thrust.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's everything is very intentional, and I want to teach you about that intentionality, which is why I put so much effort into like writing the descriptions for the day and writing the cueing for the exercises, the purpose of the exercise, because like I said, like I'm going to put in those, like if I have rehab style unilateral glute bridges, I'm going to say this is not to grow your glutes. This is to teach you how to control your body positioning, which in the bodybuilding stage, that's integral, right? Like it's so important to be able to control every single aspect of your body. So even if you don't have great control or mind muscle connection with certain parts of your body right now, build it. Just work on it. That's all it takes. It's just like saying, well, I can't deadlift 500 pounds. Well, of course you can't, because you haven't worked up to it. So take your time, learn your body, and figure out what you need to do in order to position it so that it looks the way you want it to look on stage. Which also goes towards, if we go back to training, you're sculpting your physique, and you can grow muscle with cookie cutter programs and no intentionality. You can get bigger, sure.
Yeah, of course.
But if you want to grow the exact proportions that you want to grow, and you want to sculpt your body to look exactly the way you want it to look on stage, this intentionality is just integral. It's crucial.
Sure.
And that's pretty much all my training has been this year is positional intentionality. But I feel like I look like I've gotten so much bigger, and I haven't. I'm down to like 190 pounds, which I've been down at this weight, this lean before. But my body definitely looks different.
Wait, segue. Let's talk about, we got to the gym this morning, and as soon as TC got out of the car, someone came up to him from the gym. What did he say?
We're still getting our bags out of the car.
He said, yo,
He
man,
said, I gotta ask.
what is it?
Yeah.
Nutrition? Genetics? What are you doing? And just, I hid behind the other side of the car because I didn't want to talk.
Yes, if I was on anything.
Yes.
Yep.
He asked what you were on.
Because what I said was just 20 years, man. 20 years.
And he said, I've been
Doing
working
it.
out since I've been 16 and I don't look like you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just listened. But I thought it was really funny. TC does get asked what.
I'm sure he went home telling himself I was on drugs, but
Well, most people do.
yeah, that's
Most
okay.
people think that you're on.
But that's the thing is like a lot of people don't understand how hard I've worked to build the physique that I have, and to build the strength that I have. It's freaking hard. And luckily I've always been someone who pushes to the absolute limit in anything that I do. Like,
And sometimes too far.
yeah, I mean, I had a L5 stress fracture in seventh grade. Okay. Because I was a 3-sport athlete and I did not do it slowly. Okay. No, I don't do anything slowly. I
Yes.
do everything full tilt.
Uh-huh.
So yeah. So
Sorry about that. I totally interrupted your train of thought, but
That's okay.
that was really funny to me this morning.
I mean, that goes to the intentionality of training. This guy's been working out since he was 16 years old, but because he's just going in and going through the motions, he doesn't have the body he wants. And now I saw his arms. His arms were good size. They were probably, his biceps and triceps were honestly probably bigger than mine.
Yeah.
But his proportions, he just didn't have the body. Like, you look at a magazine figure and you think, oh, I just need to go work out. But that's
Sure.
not necessarily what it is. If someone's in a magazine, it's because they've spent the time sculpting that physique.
Right.
And I think that a lot of people don't give enough credit to sculpting.
Sure. And okay, so here's another thing is talking about feedback, like judge feedback, and how we like to have the athlete as part of the conversation. There's whether I get the judge feedback for them or they convey the judge feedback, the client conveys it to me. We have a discussion about it. We have like an athlete playbook. I have their pictures. I have every piece of judge feedback, all kinds of crazy stuff. And I take some time after show, look at their physique, look at what needs to be improved for where the next show is that's coming up. You and I have a conversation because I'll talk about here's what the judge said, here's what we need to improve upon. We talk about how we can implement training strategies, but then we include the client. I'll send them a video reviewing their show, what stuff went well, what stuff we can improve upon, and what we're strategizing to move them forward. Because they need to know what the roadmap is kind of looking like, because the responsibility of intentionality is on them. So, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. So the other thing that I think is important is helping the athlete to understand what certain pieces of judge feedback mean.
Yeah, that's
And what it means for them, right? So like if someone says fuller glutes or more glute depth, that may mean the same thing. It may mean something completely different. And then, so we take what the judge feedback was and have that conversation with the athlete and now we see what the athlete wants to do with that information. So I had a judge tell me, you're a bodybuilder. He called me Mr. Bodybuilder the entire time I was with him.
that was great.
I fully expected that feedback. Okay. I took that because, like I said, I fully expected it because I know that my hips are wider than all 4 people that were above me in the last show that I did. And instead of just saying, okay, well, I'll compete in bodybuilding next because that's where he said I'm going to do well, I said, okay, what do I have to do to change that perspective of me as an athlete? Which may or may not be certain people's, approach. Then that's fine. We've had athletes before where you've had athletes who have done bikini, wellness, figure, like trying to just figure out where they fit. And then that one show Jamie did where she got third in all 3 categories is like, well, that wasn't helpful.
Oh my gosh, I felt so bad that was a feat to try and do 3 categories in one show. I give her so much credit for
and
that.
she got third on all of them,
Yeah.
which is great. But it's also like, okay, well, I still don't know where I fit best.
Right. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, like you really have to make that choice as an athlete. But that's where the athlete education comes in. Is there has to be a give and take between the coach and the athlete, and we both have to be on the same page. We have to know what the athlete wants, and the athlete has to know what they need to do to get there.
Right.
So I think that's where like the education aspect comes in with the judge's feedback, is really like educating them on what the judge meant about how they saw your physique in comparison with the other physiques that were up on stage next to you.
Right.
And what they should be doing with that information.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, I think it's always good to just talk about where you're going next. The athlete should know where they're going next.
Yeah.
What is the goal right now? And sometimes, so like that kind of goes into like an improvement season, because a show goal is pretty cut and dry. You know, you want to be conditioned, you want to have nice full muscle
Mm-hmm.
bellies, and you want to place well.
Mm-hmm.
Where in improvement season, it can be a little bit frustrating for people because they don't know what am I chasing right now. Yeah, I want to grow muscle, but I think it's really helpful to establish other focal points and have that communication. So if there's, you know, hip mobility issues, let's use the time now to, because that's going to help your posing, that's going to help your muscle growth. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's focus on making sure that that happens. That's hard. That's a hard thing to do when you're spending a lot of time doing cardio, dieting for a show. You're just trying to make it to the stage. Still do it, but you can put more of an emphasis on it in an improvement season. And that's one thing that I like to communicate with clients about, and educate them on what should we be looking at in the improvement season.
Yes.
Hands down for everybody, it's we want food variety. I want you to be eating like lots of different foods. We need to make sure nutrition is giving you lots of variety of those micro nutrients. I want you to have a social life. Like, that's part of your improvement season. Go have fun. Like, spend time with family, spend time with friends. Go be social and have because the healthy relationships around you are part of being a healthy athlete. So invest in them. And then talking about how to approach food as well too, in an improvement season, like having some flexibility. I have clients that they will have a certain amount of macros 5 days a week, and then they get an influx 2 days, 2 back-to-back days. They're going to get an influx, and we set that up around their lifestyle or their schedule, where it makes them feel like a reward. It's a reward system. And it still helps them with their goals. Some people just need flex calories. They do really well knowing that they have an extra 300, 500, whatever it is in particular to them, that they can use any day. You know, I'm feeling extra hungry today. I had a long travel day. And they can kind of use them at their own disposal. And then other improvement season things are just making sure our goals are good sleep. You are having healthy digestion. We're having a doctor look at your lab work. We're making sure that we're optimizing the season where your body is relaxed and happy. Cortisol is managed, and we're setting you up for, you know, the next season where you're getting into a grind. If we're micromanaging every single thing in your improvement season, that's adding stress that's just going to compound and go into your dieting phase. That's where I think some mistakes are made with athletes who try and be too perfect in their improvement seasons. They want so bad to be better that and I'm talking about myself,
Mm-hmm.
they hyper focus on all the little details that just makes them stressed 365 days a year because they're analyzing everything. And then they're getting into a dieting phase already, like coming from a place of feeling a little bit stressed out. So,
I think that's another good opportunity for education as well, because if we can explain to these athletes what that stress is doing to themselves, like basically you're second guessing your own body and its ability to get to where you want to go. And I know I've already talked about the steroid mentality study that they did, where
oh yeah,
your brain really controls how your body reacts to certain stimulus.
yeah,
And if you don't believe that you're doing the right thing, you're not going to make as much progress as someone who does believe that they're doing the right thing. Now, that doesn't mean that you can just believe you're doing the right thing eating a Big Mac on the couch. Like that's not
yeah,
what I'm saying here.
yeah,
But you're eating more food than you're used to eating. And that can make someone nervous, you know, when you start putting on a little more weight than you're used to, especially when we had a fat year together and we don't want to
yeah.
go back there. And we just want to make sure that we're being intentional with these things. But coaching mentality is probably one of the hardest aspects of coaching. So, and like you were talking about with the off season and like directing the focus, our job is to help educate these clients on creating longevity in their athletic career, right? So we want to make sure that they're able to continually progress. The goal is progress, not perfection, right? And as long as you're continually making progress, that's all you can ask for. And maintaining that focus, I think, is very important. So, yeah, alleviating stress and anxiety surrounding your prep, I think, especially I'm going to say especially for women, I think that they're just more prone to stressing and being anxious about certain things and worrying about certain things. Not to say that there aren't guys out there that have the same thing.
I was gonna say I know some.
Yeah, but like I went through prep. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing the right thing.
Your
We're going to get there.
your lack of stress stressed me out.
Yes.
You're not worried about this?
Perpetually. Yep. So, but it worked very well. So,
Yeah. So like the point was setting clear goals, and making sure that we're also talking about why those are important things to focus on. So I guess that goes in line with the education part.
definitely, yeah. Because and we're bringing the attention to these things. So it's just like a movement imbalance in your training. We're going to bring your attention and educate you on why this is an issue and what we need to do to fix it, right? I'm not just going to ask you for a squat video and then say, okay, I want you to do this exercise and this exercise and not give you any other information. That's crazy, because then you're gonna be like, okay, well, why am I doing Smith machine squats when you're watching a barbell back squat? Why am I doing Smith machine front squats? That doesn't make sense. Whereas if I explain it to you, like, okay, so what I saw was a little bit of torso collapsing. I want to make sure that we hit your abdominals to make sure that you can maintain a little bit more of an upright position. I want to hit your quads, make sure your quads and your hip flexors are nice and straight.
So understanding carbs, fats, protein. Some people have they don't like it. They're like, well, I just want a meal plan. And sometimes we can start there if they're really struggling, and we can talk about creating how many meals you have in a day, how to pair certain macro ingredients together so that you're sustaining good, blood sugar. But I like to move away from that as much as possible. Say track 5 days a week during your work schedule just to keep your life, or use the meal plan if you want for 5 days because you're crazy busy. On the weekend, do not use that meal plan. Like, try utilizing the app, try tracking the macros, start looking at what you're wanting to eat and what that food is made up of so that we can include foods that you enjoy, because I think the more that people are not eliminating foods arbitrarily and they're just eating the things that they like to eat and keeping them in their prep for longer, I mean, man, I don't know.
There's less stress and anxiety. You're going to stress out less about it because you're not saying, man, I really just want this. So have it.
And like the repercussions post show can just be so detrimental. If you've eliminated something for an extended amount of time, reintroducing it can cause digestive issues, which compounds like issues with your mood because there's so much serotonin and stuff's made in your gut. it just can create so many other problems. And like that also, what's the word I'm looking for?
And that's what you have. Same thing for lunch and dinner. And then if you want to fill the rest of your calories in with something else, you can if you're tracking. Whereas if you have that meal plan, there's nothing you can do. This is what you have to have every
Mm-hmm.
single day. And if we want to give you a refeed, it's so much harder for us. Like we have to like literally iterate what you're going to have in that meal. And then first of all, who knows like how you cook it, or if you go out and get a burger and a steak or a steak instead of making a steak at home, like there's just so many variables. We'd much rather just give you a certain amount of calories to work within and give you that freedom and flexibility to decide on your own what you want.
Which autonomy I think is important for athletes
Mm-hmm.
too.
100%.
If I feel like someone's controlling every aspect of my life through a prep, there's the pendulum swings opposite direction at some point. So letting people make choices, I think.
I think that's another good education topic as well, is like teaching athletes how to auto-regulate their own prep.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably one of the hardest things because we know that our emotions will lie to us. And the deeper you get
Right.
into prep, like the more you're going to say, man, I'm really struggling. I think I need more food. I think I need a refeed this weekend. I think I need this. I think I need this. And of course, your body is telling you you need more food. Like
Yeah.
that's the point of prep and being in a
Yeah.
deficit, right?
Yeah.
So, maintaining that focus on that and being honest with ourselves about what your body actually needs, that's really hard. And it really comes like at the upper end of the intermediate athlete level and more towards the elite athlete level, where the auto regulation really takes a larger role. But I think as coaches, it's our job to bring the client's attention to their own body and their own needs, honestly, right? Not emotionally, and teach them how to auto regulate in their
Mm-hmm.
training and their diet. And it's going to start with, well, and end with communication with the coach, right? Like they're going to express certain things to the coach, and it just like it just demands an increase in communication between the coach and the client.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when you have that increased communication, your progress is going to be much more efficient.
Right. Yeah, and there are seasons for everything, like you said. Like there are times where an athlete, your job's to report what's
Mm-hmm.
happening, and it's my job to make the calls of what needs to happen next.
And sometimes it can be very stressful to like bring yourself to tell your coach what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think we know that. But at the end of the day, especially in a growing season, there's so much flexibility and room for change and adaptation that you should not be struggling through your growing season. If you're struggling with a body image issue, that's one thing. Like you were just stage lean,
That's tough. Yeah.
it's going to be tough to be softer. It is 100%. There's no doubt about it, and I don't believe that anyone is immune to that. Of course, we all like eating food, but we all also like looking really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it becomes really difficult. But that's where the balance and auto regulation comes into play. Okay, now I need to make sure that I'm doing things to enjoy my life and to reassert to myself that this is an enjoyable part of prep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't necessarily look as good, but we can go out to dinner on the weekend. We can have a little more flexibility. I can have that treat. I can have that chocolate bar tonight if I want. I can have a little bit of ice cream this weekend if I want. Like, there's a lot more flexibility. But it all comes down to communicating with your coach and establishing that. And I guess at that point, it's not necessarily auto-regulation because you're still bringing it to your coach and your coach is still giving you the prescription. But let's just say 5 years later, you're on your own because you can't afford coaching for whatever reason. Now you know what is expected and how to make these adjustments for yourself. And that's where it comes to the athlete's responsibility of educating themselves and trying to learn and advance themselves as an athlete.
Yeah. And you touched on it a little bit earlier in the podcast about some coaches find it almost threatening when people ask questions or they want to understand why. And so it discourages people from
Yeah.
doing that type of investigation. Now, there's pros and cons to everything. Sometimes you still need to be able to trust your coach. So if you're asking a question, there should be an answer. If there's not an answer, then it's an effort in finding out, how we can get a solution to that question. But especially when you're deep in a deficit and, your body is giving you, like you said, some different cues for like, yeah, my body is telling me I need to eat more and sleep better. And,
I'm pretty sure I do really well with a cheeseburger before my show.
yeah, like that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's why that is a specific different role that your coach has
Yeah.
in like just letting you be uncomfortable enough to get the end result that you're looking for. So I don't want it to seem like,
And still express that discomfort, right? Like
right.
don't just
Yes,
suffer arbitrarily. The goal of prep is not to see who can suffer more.
exactly. Because if I have somebody who's not, there's an athlete who's been really uncomfortable for like 5, 6 weeks and they have not told their coach and they tell them in the 7th week.
Yeah, you don't know. You're like, okay, well, you're supposed to be. Now it's about time.
Right.
That's what the coach is gonna think.
But if it's that long of a duration, yeah, maybe you do need like a refeed or you need a deload week or you need something. But yeah, so like I said, I think that there is that athlete responsibility of communicating and wanting to learn. And I think it's a more fun, like it's a fun process when you get to link arms with that athlete and figure their body out with them. Okay, so what's your life like? What mentality struggles do you have? Like, what's your routine? What do you enjoy? What are the weaknesses? What are the strengths? How can we make this prep yours? It's your prep. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's. And so, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I find it really enjoyable. And
We're learning their body together. Is where
yeah,
we're going. Yeah.
and I like when people are like, "What do you think about?" I'm like, I never thought about that. Let's talk through it. And then we weigh it out if it's something worth trying or not.
And is what another cool aspect about having a group of different types of athletes is you're gonna have some athletes who send you exercise videos and say, "What do you think of this? What do you think this is targeting? Do you think this would be beneficial?" And then you're gonna have some athletes who send you food articles. What do you think of this? Do you think
Yeah.
this is BS? Do you think this chemical is good or bad? Or do you think? And then you're gonna have people who send you mobility stuff, and then you're gonna have people who send you postpartum stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's so cool to be able to learn an eclectic group of people. Also because it helps you learn, teach, and help more people, right? So like our job is not just educating athletes that are our clients, but and that's why we're doing this podcast. That's why we do YouTube, is because we have decided to immerse ourselves in this industry, whether it's bodybuilding or powerlifting. We haven't gotten into a ton of other sports yet, but no telling what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
But since, how do I want to phrase this? I believe that God gives people certain capabilities and strengths and weaknesses that can complement each other. And he chose for us to be in the fitness industry because and allowed for us to more easily learn these things and be very interested in these things, so that, again, just like I talked about earlier, we can go down this fitness rabbit hole and then provide the spark notes for you guys. So we're going to sift through all the crap. We're going to try stuff on our own bodies, and then we're going to bring you the final product and say, hey, this is what worked for us. This is what I researched. This is what I found out. Then this is what I tried. And then this is what I'm bringing to you. And ideally, we can iterate all of those stages. We're kind of flying by the seat of our pants recently, so so we can't produce as much content as we want to. But we are working on, partnering with some more videographers, and we're moving in that direction, because we do just believe it's so important to disseminate this information to people.
And as we grow, you guys can grow with us.
Exactly. There's just so much misinformation in the fitness industry too.
That is very true.
Oh my gosh. Like, oatmeal is not killing you. Okay. I watched BioLane just went off on someone, some Dr. Pete or something. Like, oh my gosh, talking about some chemical in oatmeal, and this is what's bad. It's not oatmeal, it's McDonald's, people. Okay.
Wow.
But anyway.
Yeah, there's so much. But I applaud professionals in the industry that are correcting the misinformation. I'm still surprised at what questions I get from clients sometimes, and not in a way of like, wow, I'm really surprised you're like not intelligent. It's more like there are beliefs that people are still living by in the fitness industry that I take for granted. And so, like, having an outlet where we can share those things and have the privilege of working with individuals is a blessing. So well, I think we pretty much talked on all of our points. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so.
Okay.
As usual, thank you to everyone who's listening, every one of our subscribers, everyone who's left us I was going to say a positive review, but I'm pretty sure they're all positive.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate the support, guys. Keep the topics coming. If there's something that you would like to hear us talk about, we'd be happy to oblige. You can shoot me a message on Instagram. You shoot Chris a message. You can shoot Reckless Training a message. However you want to get that over.
So give our Instagram handles.
So my Instagram handle is longshotgamble, all one word.
And I'm Chris Nicole _IFBB Pro.
And our Reckless Training Instagram is reckless_training. We do have a website, recklesstraining.com, and there is a Reckless Media tab in there where you can see all of our YouTube videos, you can see our exercise library, and you can see Chris Nicole's vlog.
Oh, yeah.
New video coming soon.
I'm a little behind, but I'll catch up eventually. Yeah, so yeah, definitely.
So I also have an events tab on there that talks about the Miami International Fitness Expo. I will be putting, their homepage link on there as well, so you can kind of go over to that page and see what that expo is all about if you are interested in coming down. And I believe on the Reckless Media page, we have our donation tab up there too. So if you'd like to help support the podcast, it would be very appreciated. We drive for Instacart and do WAG to, try to help,
We walk dogs and food shop for people just to make extra money. Yeah.
But again, we love what we do. We love helping you guys. We love making this content. And we would just really like to continue to increase our content output for you guys.
Yeah.
We believe that we have a ton of experience from all the positive and negatives that have happened in our lives. And we just really want to continue sharing that with you guys. And
another way you can support us is just by liking, subscribing, writing us a review. Really helps people find us on the platform. So any of that is greatly appreciated.
And any of our athletes out there, past, present, or maybe even future. No, future, you can't do this yet. But we would love a Google review as well on the Reckless Training business page. That would be helpful as well, just to kind of, help with the algorithm.
Yeah. Okay, why don't you take us out?
This is just a reminder. Train hard, stay humble, and train reckless. I said that wrong. Work hard.
Oh, no one's going to remember it. How long was it?
Maybe an hour.
Great. I'm so sorry about your eye. You really hung in there.
Sorry, babe.
I was trying to talk faster.
It didn't feel like it. Felt like I kept distracting you, and you could slow it down. And
Oh.
I was like, "Stop fucking moving!" So she keep talking.
Oh. Well, you did a great job. Great job, babe. Oh, do you want me to stop this?
Yeah.